Welcome, Black Hollywood Live fans. On today's Fit Club, we talk optimal fasting time, potato power, and more with Call of Duty Modern Warfare star Chad Michael Collins. Stay tuned.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Welcome, Fit Clubbers. We are back with an all-new Fit Club. I'm joined by my guest host, Renella Ferrer, who you recognize from E's Revenge Body.
What's up, guys? I'm back.
And, of course, our guest of honor, Mr. Chad Michael Collins, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. How you doing?
Oh, there's applause. I love this.
Yes.
I get that to follow me around with me everywhere I go. It'd be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
You may recognize him from NCIS, Once Upon a Time, Bone,
Yes.
CSI. You've done it all. You've done it all.
Yeah, I like to joke that when I'm not doing sniper movies or Call of Duty, I'm in all the shows your parents love to watch back home. All the
Hey, we
CBS
love to
fun
watch
stuff.
those shows too.
Right,
man. Yeah.
exactly.
That's awesome. We've got a lot to talk about, but we're going to dig into some stories first and hear your background and your thoughts on some of these stories. Ready? Ready. Let's go. So our first story is athletes have better brains and are actually hearing better. So if you want some motivation to get into sports and athletics, this might be it. But it looks like at the Journal of Sports Health, they looked at these athletes at Northwestern, about 500 athletes and then 500 non-athletes, a control group. And they found that in analyzing their electrical response to sound, that these athletes were better to discern sound. And so it looks like the more athletic you are, the better you are at hearing in this particular way if it's against back noise. So your brain is able to kind of better discern sound that's in particular from an audience of noise. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But they're doing it as part of a concussion study. And they're trying to determine whether or not these sound waves they're looking at are going to be able to determine whether or not you're ready to go back onto the field and play.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, this is really some interesting stuff.
That's interesting.
But it's so needed, especially in the concussion world and that debate and what's happening with our athletes. And I thought, as an action star, someone who's doing this stuff regularly,
Right.
have you had injuries? Had you had to come back from injuries? Did you have to come back from an injury too early and figure that out?
I mean, I used to play high school football and
Right.
got knocked around quite a bit. And this was, way back in the day before concussions were even discussed. It was typically there was one of those, you got your belt rung, kid. Get back in there. We need you. So it was one of those. I remember, and I share a funny story of playing. I was a wide receiver and I went up for a pass over the middle and just got completely laid out, just like right under the chin strap, right into the ground.
Oh, my God.
I was out of it. And by the time I dragged myself up off the ground, my head was down and I was just trying to like meander off to the sideline, and the ref, grabbed me like, wrong way, son. It's the other team's sideline. I had no idea where I was, but
Right.
like 2 plays later, I was back in.
Yeah.
So I do know what that feels like. It's not a nice feeling, but that is really interesting. I think it's
Right.
interesting because thinking about athletes in general, there is such a mental component to athletics, especially
Right.
at those highest levels that people don't understand. It's like, oh, you run fast. Football, 500-page playbooks. Like there's strategy within strategy in every sport, and the mental discipline and focus it takes. So that's actually
probably what it is,
yeah,
because you're practicing your,
right.
your
So there's a
senses.
synchronicity there between, your body, your neurons firing your brain at all times. So I think that's a really interesting way to learn if somebody's kind of back with it.
Yeah,
Right.
and for longevity, because you want these kids to not only be able to play sports for a long time, but to have careers after those sports are gone as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
So did you ever have a time where you suffered an injury and had to rehab that and go back to work?
Injuries, yeah. I mean, knock on wood. In terms of the acting stuff, there's no way you can do an action movie without getting banged
Yes,
up,
especially
bumped.
with all the stuff that you do all the
Yeah,
time.
bumped,
Right.
bruises, cuts. There's blood. There's a lot of things like that, and but I've not had anything too severe that I couldn't, be ready a day later on, or not like show up for a day. So I've been pretty fortunate on that end.
I mean, I guess it makes sense, because if you're doing a lot of action, fighting stuff, and you have to know what's going on around you in order to calculate your next move,
Yeah.
right? So your senses are like much more exercised.
Yeah, on a long
when it
enough
comes to hearing.
timeline, doing stunts,
Right?
inevitably a stunt will go wrong. You
Right.
will
Yeah.
get punched in the face. You will accidentally smash your head on the
Right.
ground or the wall.
Because you didn't come from a stunt background, you just
No.
sort of, you
just
were
kinda
working in PR
happened.
and kind of went into
But
that,
it also
right?
just happens, you
Yeah.
miss your mark, there's loose footing sometimes, a million variables can go into it. If you're playing with guns and props and whatever, you'll smash your fingers up, you'll hit someone with it, you'll get hit with it. It just kind of comes with the territory. And I heard a veteran stunt guy tell me once, you know, it was clear that he was really kind of banged up after like a pratfall or something like that. He threw himself through a window or something. And he got up, and you could tell he's kind of like shaking it off, walking it off. And I'm like, man, how do you do this? He's like, I've been doing this for 25 years. He's like, you're always going to get hurt. The key is don't get injured.
Yeah.
Because you can't work. There's a different mentality, right? Yeah.
Do you have like a recovery protocol, like something you do every day, like an ice bath every day or something like that, to kind of keep you?
I tell you what, I've never been good with even stretching.
Really?
Which I should probably look into a heck of a lot more. It would have saved me a lot of grief, but not typically, you know. I just try to, you know, drink the water and get to sleep and, you know,
it's like
eat
second
the good
nature
food.
for you.
Yeah. So,
That's amazing.
Consistency.
it would be nice to be Wolverine, though, wouldn't it?
Right?
Healing
You
power,
could be.
yeah.
Hey.
Well, speaking of fasting, which has been known to help with healing as well, but you know, we're always kind of wondering about what is the optimal time to fast or what's beneficial for us. And they're saying now, based on the study, 14 hours a day will at least help diabetes and weight loss. So it was a small study published in the Journal of Cell Metabolism, and they looked at, it was a 12-week pilot study, 19 obese patients were looked at, and they changed nothing but the timing of the eating whatsoever. And then they actually found that they dropped 3 to 4% in BMI and reduction in body weight, and self-reported more energy, better sleep, and their cholesterol and blood pressure went down as well. So it looks like 14 hours is sort of the window they're saying, you know, is the optimal time to fast. Do you experiment with fasting? Have you tried it?
Yeah, I've intermittent fasted, you know, on and off for years.
Oh, okay.
You know, really before it was cool. Yeah, I've been a paleo diet guy since way before it was cool, and all this. The shelves were stocked with alternative food. I've you know, when the book came out in like 2007, I was one of the first guys to buy it, and I found that was the one thing that really worked for me the best, and so consistently. I tried a million other things. But in the paleo community, which gave way to the keto community, intermittent fasting was very synonymous with you know, that whole community. So that's before it became mainstream. People in the paleo circles were already talking about it, and so I was very aware of it there. And I still do it. Like, I don't think I didn't eat today until lunch at 1 o'clock.
And
you know, so I had my 14 hours for sure.
And people cite that for injury prevention. So maybe that's why you've been so fortunate with injuries.
And I think it's just, you know, people don't understand that when you impair your body with food, it's one of the most energy consuming processes, digestion. So I think the beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is you just give your body a break. Yeah. And if you give your body a break, it knows how to fix itself in all the other areas. So if you don't bombard it with food, especially hard to digest food,
that's so true.
It gets a reprieve, it gets a breather, right? And it can focus on the other parts of your body and your health that need a little tune-up.
Yeah, absolutely. The inflammation and everything. Right. Yeah, how about, have you tried? Have you experimented with it?
I've experimented with fasting different ways. And it actually have worked for me with weight loss. Yeah. So that, and also after that, I actually felt stronger. Even while I was going to the gym, obviously the first day it's very hard. You get a headache, you know, especially with me. Like, I love sweets. I try not to have like coffee or anything like that. But the moment, like, I would say like third day, I'm okay. Yeah. Like the headache goes away and I'm completely fine. So it has worked for me. I should actually try it again. That's what I was thinking about it. I'm like, I should try it again. But 14 hours, normally I don't do 14 hours. I would do like from like the time I wake up till like about 5, 6 p.m. Yeah. So, but I guess that's a long time, right? Like, yeah. Think about it. That's true. That is it. Yeah, that's more than 14 hours. Never mind. Right. So I've been doing more than 14 hours. I didn't even know.
Yeah, so I do the same thing. I experiment with intermittent fasting, but I want to get a dry fasting expert. Have you heard about dry fasting?
What is that?
Was it just no food?
Yeah, I mean, no food but no water as well.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been hearing about this and like trying to experiment with it myself, but I want to get an expert on as well. Because, but they say that 1 day of dry fasting is equivalent to 3 days of water fasting.
No
and
kidding.
That's really great for you in terms of like you know, your cells repairing and what have you. So that'll be my latest thing to look into. But what's the craziest diet you've tried?
Oh man, I had a little bit of a health crisis like in my mid-20s. I was living too hard, playing too hard, stressed out at the job I was doing at the time, et cetera, et cetera. Everything just piles, and eventually your body has a threshold. You're going to hit it, right? Yeah. And so I just started having fatigue, brain fog, all sorts of things that a normal 25-year-old should not be experiencing. So Western medicine doctors were really of no help. They were just trying to give me, you know, anxiety pills. So like that's pretty much the opposite of what's going to fix things. So I took it upon myself to explore, discover, and I just treated myself like my own guinea pig. I went vegetarian. I went vegan. I did kidney cleanses, liver flushes. I did everything, you know, food allergy tests. I did everything under the sun. But there was a time, I think you guys would find this horrifying and amazing. There was a time I was eating raw meat for several months.
No, I remember that was a thing that people talked about, raw meat diet. Yeah.
Raw meat, so raw
How
steak,
is
raw
that?
chicken. I mean, you have to get the best quality you possibly can.
Yeah.
Did you put salt and pepper or some type of seasoning?
I mean, it was pretty plain. It was pretty straight up, just
Holy crap! Oh.
you know, rip it into some chunks of meat for a while. And I did that, and I was not any worse for wear, but ultimately, I don't think it moved the needle in a way that anything else would have either. So I'm like, well, this is
Not
silly.
worth
I
it.
liked cooked food. Yeah.
Right.
Did you discover what ended up kind of clearing up that crisis?
I mean, it's just still an ongoing thing. I think that I had a long history as a kid, growing up when I did. There wasn't as much of a linkage to diet and health as there was today. People are still going off a food pyramid, which is it's like, you got to get 8 slices of bread in you.
Right.
And it's like, what are you talking about?
That's not
No one needs that ever, even if they're running a marathon.
Exactly.
So that's what we were always operating on. Is right there on the box. The government says so, so we must have to do it. So I think that coupled with, and the solutions back in the day for every doctor, no matter what, was antibiotics.
Yeah.
Antibiotics don't never hurt you. They're good for you. And so if I look back, I did 10 to 12 straight years on some form of antibiotic or another, which, as you all learned today, is brutal.
Yeah.
It'll destroy your guts.
Yeah.
And so it's been since then. I've just constantly been trying to maintain, build, repair all the damage that was done, so kind of recklessly, obliviously, back in the day. So. And then you add a kind of your raging 20s on top of that with a lot of food and fun and everything else, and it's like it's kind of the perfect storm for a little bit of a collapse. So but now just eat clean.
You've always been like a health conscious, like since you were little.
Yeah, I just felt like I felt like I had to learn it the hard way when this stuff happened.
And then you learned it on your own and try to figure out on your own.
That's what it is. There's I really believe that it is a concept called bio-individuality where vegan may not work for someone, paleo may not work for someone else.
That's so true.
So you really have to, you've got to listen.
Yeah, you've got to
pay attention.
Own best,
Yeah, so it's trial and error, and it's not always fun at times with your elimination diets and your everything else, but I feel like I have pretty dialed into what works for me anyway. So, and when I'm consistent, things are good.
Nice.
When I go off the rails a little bit, things are less good.
And then you go back to fasting. So yes.
But you can always hit the reset button,
right?
Right,
absolutely.
Eat clean and do some fasting.
Right. Well, speaking of what you might need for like a marathon run, they're looking at potatoes boosting your exercise performance. So typically potatoes starchy. People say stay away, stay away. But they looked at them because they're cost effective, rich in nutrients, a whole food source of carbohydrates, and they're savory versus the sweet sort of carbohydrate fuels you get if you're running a marathon. So they did a study, 12 people. Some they gave the gel to, some they gave water, the others they gave the potato puree. And the ones that got the gel and the potato puree both had increased exercise performance, whereas the ones with the water did not. Right. And they actually had the same sort of blood glucose levels as the gel and the potato puree groups. So they're saying, hey, this is a great whole food alternative to this potential supplement. So I was wondering, are there supplements you've replaced in your own diet with whole foods, or whole foods you look to kind of replicate a particular performance result?
I don't mess around with a lot of supplements in general because I learned the hard way that let food be thy medicine. And when you start like switching out too much and going for synthetic or tweaked or maybe not pure versions of that, how can your body use that as effectively, right? You're isolating something that is normally found in a very complex chemical formula in the food that you eat. So I've always tried to go the whole foods route in that way. So no, I don't mess around with too much. I actually don't eat potatoes. I grew up on potatoes a lot. We kind of grew up like on the bottom rung of like middle class. So there's a lot of canned food and a lot of potatoes. Because those things are cheap.
Cost effective. That's what they say.
But if I eat a potato now, I kid you not, in 10 minutes my heart rate will spike 15 beats per minute.
Wow.
So which is like a food sensitivity.
Really?
Take your pulse, and if you're kind of feels like your chest is like about to explode, like you should probably avoid that food.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah, that'll be a good
big fan
measure.
But not regular potatoes. So you don't eat French fries?
I don't eat anything fried. I live quite a boring lifestyle.
Well, so I was gonna say. So what is your diet, and does your diet change when you're like getting ready for a movie?
Absolutely. I'm very, very strict when I'm days away from shooting, of course. I always try to maintain a level of fitness where it's easy to get there in a day or two.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly still paleo, but I got to say this year I have gone more toward the vegan side of things, incorporating that. So I would say I'm on a daily basis, I am 60 to 70% vegan all day long, and maybe I'll get into some turkey or a steak.
And so what
at night.
So what are you eating? What are you eating?
There's a great group of books called Medical Medium. The guy's called Medical Medium. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Anthony William, and he's the guy behind the whole celery juice craze. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Of course, yeah.
But I went and read all of his books this year because I heard people were having amazing results. You look at his Instagram account, and the before and after pictures are absolutely incredible. And this guy really pulls back, the curtain on the value of fruit, vegetables, herbs, things like this. And I really decided, well, let's give it a go. And so I've been on the celery juice kind of most of the year. I've definitely, it won't even be till dinner before I get like a piece of meat in me, which used to be 4 squares a day, starting at breakfast, hamburgers, So it's been really, really nice. I feel a lot cleaner, a lot, leaner and meaner in that way. And that's been the one big change that I've kind of incorporated this year, and I'm certainly no worse off. In fact, I'm probably a lot better for it.
Yeah, from raw meat to this, that's like an evolution.
Yeah.
It's quite the evolution.
So you have celery juice for breakfast sometimes, or like when you wake up in the morning before you work out. Like, do you have anything like what's your go-to?
What's my go-to? It's not fun. There's
That's fine.
I don't do dairy and I don't do eggs, so breakfast for me is kind of a wash. I don't eat wheat, so cereals, donuts. All the fun things you grew up loving about breakfast is not my life.
What is your fun food that you do have?
If you do.
My fun food.
Yeah, no, everyone's got to have some sort of fun food.
It sounds really lame, but if I can get like a vegan protein bar in me that tastes somewhat like a Snickers or a brownie, I'm like, that's good.
Okay.
I mean, literally, I have boxes of these because it's about the only dessert that I have, but it still performs a function, at least in my lifestyle.
So food is not even like your end-all, be-all. You're just like, that's like a secondary, the last thing that you probably think of.
It's about utility, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. It's not
food
really...
is fun, but I would be a really boring date at a fancy restaurant because I'd have the chef be like, yeah, if it's fancy or fun, just take it off, man. I can't do it. Yeah.
So what do you do? Okay, so I'm sure some women are asking, like, what do you do when you go on dates? Like, do you go get a cup of tea? Hike?
I mean, coffee, hike. I can survive at a restaurant. I was at a restaurant today. I just don't do it often because, when you're particular, you have the sensitivities. You learn to do it yourself. Yeah. So I cook for myself almost all the time, but I can survive. Right. And then LA makes it easy too.
Yeah, LA is very accommodating. Yeah.
Which is great about this city in that way. So, it's all good. It's just kind of like that dish with nothing fancy, like literally just like a steak, please.
Well, given that philosophy, I'm guessing you haven't tried the latest trend, which is called Perineum sunning.
You'd be right.
And so Josh Brolin found out the hard way. So he went to sun his perineum and apparently got burned and was just not for it. So he let this out on social media, but he certainly gave it some publicity about perineum sunning. Metaphysical Megan, who's into this practice, says it can regulate hormones and actually help your sleep patterns. And it sort of stands to reason that we say that you get vitamin from the sun and there's an area of your body that's probably not seen it much. It seems like maybe there might be some help in that. So I get why he tried it.
Well, first, explain to people what actually is a,
Oh, yes, yeah.
What is that?
Because I'm not doing it.
If you're not familiar, it is the area between the anus and the genitals of the body. So
the one in between.
Yes. That landing strip, if you will. But yeah. So you haven't tried perineum sunning, but is there any crazy Hollywood trend that you have tried?
Well, there's the raw meat thing.
Oh yeah.
I've never even tried that. That's crazy.
Not really. There was a time, like I said before, where if it had some sort of like holistic healing, alternative medicine benefit, I would try it. Yeah. Like for sure. I mean, liver flushes are kind of wacky. If you follow that trend for a while.
Yeah, I never followed the liver.
Yeah. So basically, it's based off of now completely debunked philosophy that if your liver is like your filter, right? So you got to clean that thing out.
Right.
Like if leaves get stuck in the pool filter,
you
need to get that gunk out of there. So you basically do a bit of a fast, and then you slam You take a bunch of Epsom salts and water to really open things up, you know, which is a natural kind of laxative on its own. And then you slam like an olive oil mixed with like an orange juice or like a lemon juice. You slam this concoction, which is supposed to like cause a huge contraction in your liver and like shove out all the gallstones to open everything up.
Did it work?
And then you keep pounding. Basically, you induce like diarrhea on yourself and everything else. But I've learned that it's actually completely a myth because something about your liver and temperatures, like certain things run hot and run cold and whatever, and then you introduce like oil into like a really hot organ or environment, that's what actually causes stones.
Wow.
So it's not liver stones at all. You're actually adding this
element that's going to get you more susceptible.
Which then takes a different form, and then you excrete it and you think you've done something for your health. But you know, I used to do those quite a bit, swearing that maybe just the fasting was the only thing that helped me. The fasting leading up and leading out of it was probably the only benefit I got out of it.
Yeah, but you try everything and you kind of pick and see what still remains, and that's what still remains. So hey, that's what's working.
Yeah. How about you, Shaka? What crazy diet have you tried? Or crazy Hollywood fad?
I mean, the craziest thing was cryo, but now it's like in vogue and it's cool now. I mean, that was like crazy a few years ago.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. And the infrared, you know, the infrared light, do that. I get in the pod and it's all red. And that was crazy a couple of years ago, but now I feel like people are like, hey, that's cool.
I've been hearing a lot about the float chambers.
Oh, I have heard.
Which I've not tried.
I've tried that when I was in Louisiana.
Yeah, how'd you like that?
I mean, it didn't make a difference. I don't know. It was just relaxing.
But the next day you weren't, or super like keyed in, you weren't super focused.
But you know what? I don't know. Maybe because at that time I was really like working out all day, every day. So I felt like it didn't really make a difference. It just felt relaxing. It was good for me just to feel relaxed because the whole time you're just like quiet and you know. Yeah.
Like a yoga class. Or
that's pretty much.
Like a relaxing yoga class. That might be my next try. But yeah. So that's
But like I said, you know, like he said, it's different strokes for different folks. So, you know, it might work for some people. It might... You know, like with me, it was just nothing different.
No. So, but Perineum Sonian's out on the list?
How about you?
You know what? I feel like I actually get that when the infrared bed, though. In the infrared bed, you get that infrared light, and you're like naked in the bed, and so you get it everywhere. So I feel like if there's a benefit to it, I'm getting it there.
Right.
But I feel like women get that anyway, because think about it. We're wearing thongs and underwear. Like when we're in our bikinis, it's kind of like seeps through... Okay, like it seems. Anyway, when your legs are like that and you're like, whatever, but it's the sun seeps through.
So you're still, you're still probably getting some benefit. Yeah.
Right.
But
and then you fall asleep while you're tanning. So maybe it does work. So I'll try it again this summer.
So was there any crazy workout regimen that you went through, put yourself through before Call of Duty Modern Warfare? Because I know you guys were like, you guys worked with Navy SEALs. Right? So
That's
amazing. Amazing, but also maybe a little intimidating. You're thinking, I want to really show up and make sure, you know, these guys think I'm, you know, up to snuff.
Those guys are not impressed by anything because they've done it to the highest level, right? Which they're always the coolest people.
Yeah.
And they're calm and they're cool, and because they've been in the craziest circumstances you can't even wrap your head around. So why would you be cool?
Right.
It's those guys that are like super macho. They're like, oh, you actually haven't.
Yeah, you haven't been there. You haven't
done the thing, have you? But no, for this. For this particular video game, you know, I came into the audition in shape, you know, in shape as I would be for any other kind of soldier role, or just how I like to maintain myself in general. So I think that didn't hurt because it gave you, you know, it always gives you the sense of, you know, being fit and capable, you know, and the director and the writer see that. But at the end of the day, we're run through a computer program. So, you know, the body didn't necessarily look like mine. Obviously, you know, they had a bunch of tactical clothes on. And added tattoos and added a mustache and everything else. So it helped me, I think, get the part, just being physical and capable looking enough. And then you know, the animators kind of did all the rest of that. So I didn't do anything outside of what I normally would have, you know, done for this particular role.
You didn't have to do any acrobats, like, or anything like that, stunt moves at all?
No, but working with the Navy SEALs was cool, but that was more focused on the technical aspects.
Getting it right.
The gun, you know, clearing corners, guns, how to properly move, you know, taking the knee, finding cover, you know, working with other, you know, teammates and stuff like that. So they were really, really instrumental in helping us kind of lock that in and you know, do these brave men in service women justice.
Nice.
So
that's amazing.
Did your training change between when you were working doing PR and when you started taking on these roles? Because I imagine, you know, you looked the part, I imagine, at the time, and then you have to, like, perform the part. Did you have to change your training,
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's in the audience or you both included, anybody who's worked in an office, like, it's the slow death.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to stay fit. It's
Yeah.
hard,
Right.
you know, you're
Oh
under
my God.
artificial lights all day. You're eating for convenience, especially if you're busy and you're working sometimes 50, 60 hours a week. You're tired. And, it's hard to have a life outside of that a lot of the time. So when I finally gave myself permission to kind of leave that job, I said, I have no excuse not to be a day away from any sort of part I want to play. And that's
Yeah.
my
Right.
responsibility. I got to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
No one's going to do that for me. And so it's always been at the forefront. It's like, well, if I'm not on a gig, if I don't have an audition or whatever else, like I'm working out. I'm in the gym. I'm doing because I love it. But B, those are the parts I want to play.
Yeah.
And that most actors are like, well, when they hire me, then I'll get
Then
the
I'll-
trainer in like 3 months. I'm like, unless you're Chris Pratt
Yeah.
or someone who has a long track record of history of box office success, they ain't giving you that 6-month window and shelling out the $1 million for the trainer and the sub. They're not doing that. They're not going to transform you that way.
Yeah.
You need to show them.
Right.
Because there's not so much imagination if you're not going to guarantee them box office dollars. So
Yeah.
I think
Of
that's a point that's lost, sadly, on a lot of actors.
So do you take any other like classes, aside from the regular workout of lifting weights or whatnot? Do you take like martial arts or boxing, or is there any special stunt class that you take to be able to do the stuff that you do?
I've always boxed on and off for years, and not even in like an amateur capacity, but just the class work, working with a really great coach that's at my gym. And it's always been a cyclical thing. I've always come back to it because I love the workout. I love like kind of what you were talking about before with the athletes. There's a mental component to boxing
Yeah.
that is amazing, especially when you're tired. And the first thing to go
Oh my
out the
God,
window when
yes.
you're tired is the mental capacity,
Yeah.
Right.
So I love that. I've never stopped playing sports on the weekend. I'm in a basketball league. I've always been in multiple basketball leagues since I've arrived on LA's doorstep.
Wow.
Which is a great workout for me. And I like to go in Griffith Park and bop around and hike and do all the other stuff too outdoors. But yeah, boxing, basketball, probably my
That's-
favorite. Yeah.
That's how you learn how to do your crazy stunt moves?
I'll tell you what, if you got a background in martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, and stuff like that, you will pick up the stunt stuff so easily. Dancers,
Yeah.
a lot of
That's
women
true.
come from a dancing background, men too, of course, but just having that self-awareness in your body, you can find that these people pick up the stunts and the fight choreography so much faster.
Because they have that, even that
Because they have a
rhythm,
foundation.
Yeah.
And so it's really, for any actors out there who say they want to do action stuff,
You have to have
get
that.
in the boxing classes, get in, the dance classes. Really, you got to be in touch.
Right.
The spacing is important. The footwork is so important,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to get hit by a stunt guy. I've gotten hit, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I was gonna say physically, what has been the most challenging role? Because you have all
Right.
the sniper roles, and now you've got now you've got Call of Duty, which I guess in its own way is very physically challenging because you're not necessarily you're in a room when you're kind of suited up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little more self-contained and
Right.
temperature-controlled soundstage.
Oh, okay,
that could be
yeah.
worse. But that wasn't as physically rigorous as being outside in the elements for 12 to 14 to 16 hours. Sometimes below zero on a Bulgarian mountaintop for 16
Wow.
hours on a night shoot.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're wearing like a replica World War II
Right.
uniform, which is the cheapest stuff ever. It has no warmth. You're wet.
Oh my
For
goodness.
30 minutes in, and then you're outdoors in the dead of winter, in some things. So those, I find the physical elements become the most challenging part of those action movies, whether it's 115-degree heat or it's well below zero and you're working at night and you're soaking wet. Those sort of things have always been a lot more challenging to me and the other actors than I found than any sort of like actual stunt work.
Yeah, and are you just tapped into the character at that point to get you through, or are
Oh,
you,
man.
what part of you goes, this is what's going to get me through this night?
Yeah,
Right.
I'll tell you what, it's not always fun, it's not always comfortable, but it really separates, the people who have a certain background from those who don't,
Yeah. Right, of
because
course.
you can get really spoiled as an actor.
Yeah,
You can show up
totally,
on
yeah.
both sets and everybody wants to bring you the drinks. How you
Right,
doing?
right, right,
Checking in on you. You got your fancy little trailer.
Yeah.
You're wearing someone else's clothes. And people
Right.
make you look pretty in the morning.
Right.
Everything else, but sometimes they're going to throw you out there in the elements and there's nothing anyone can do.
Right.
Yeah,
The
just-
cold is the cold.
This is it.
And it's like, how do you handle that? I find people with an athletic background who know pain,
Yeah.
who've been through physically challenging things before, they handle it a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
How do you not get sick like that? Especially when you're out in the cold, you're getting wet.
Yeah.
Like what do you keep? You don't take supplements. How do you keep yourself healthy in the midst of all that?
I mean,
You just naturally.
I'm not a guy who gets sick a lot,
That's
thankfully.
good.
Yeah.
And also, like I said before, working in an office and just feeling that death
Sluggish.
by 1,000,
Right.
timesheets. Put me on the mountain, man. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
if
you'd
it's 30
rather
days
do
in a
it.
mountain in sub-zero temperatures is still way preferable to rotting away kind of in a desk job. And that's not to knock people who
Right,
have those
absolutely.
white-collar careers. I just know it's not for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm always in my joy, despite the challenging conditions of some of these films and places to shoot. So I think that's the one thing that, kicks my immune system into overdrive, is I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not
Right.
easy at
Yeah.
times, but I'm happy.
Happiness.
And
Yeah.
I think that mind over matter thing
We know-
really helps.
Yeah, we know it boosts the immune system. We
That's
know.
true. Yeah.
So how much Call of Duty are you playing yourself? Do you play a lot of Modern Warfare? Do you,
There's like the single player campaign, right?
Yeah.
Which is where me and a lot of my fellow actors that I work with feature in. We're telling the story. It's a 7-8 hour story that you play through. And then there's the multiplayer aspect, where all the eSports leagues and all the people online and all the million subscriber streamers all play, and and that's just player versus player. That's linking up with people around the world and like, I killed you first, So I've never done as much multiplayer in any game that I've played. So I'm gonna start dipping my toe into it to see what it is. But I tried it a few times, and you don't last very long.
That's
Because these guys are good. These guys are all day, every day.
No,
Yeah.
exactly, man. Exactly. So, but I will get into it. I'm playing through the campaign again, and it's just a really great, gritty, real story. The fans really seem to respond to it. There hasn't been
people love Call of Duty.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
Oh my God, all over the world. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
They love Call
Yeah.
of Duty.
It's been awesome interacting with all the fans all over the world. But there wasn't a single player story mode campaign in the last game last year or the year before. I don't think so. Everyone is really ready to have that experience again, and they go through it and they get excited, they get attached to the characters, then they go play multiplayer for the rest of the year. So
I remember when they even had this Call of Duty competition that they flew people from out of the country to come to the U.S. to win like $1 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's no joke.
Yeah.
eSports is crazy right now.
Right.
ESPN covers it.
Yeah, and that was like
It's
Call of
nuts.
Duty is the biggest thing. Like it's one of the big, like Call of Duty and what's the other one? Dungeons and Dragons and
Yeah, there's Fortnite. There's,
that's what it is.
Right,
Fortnite. That's what it
The
was.
Overwatch
Fortnite,
League.
Dungeons and Dragons.
There's esports teams for all this. League of Legends, and major cities, and people are getting paid salaries. I mean, kids are winning college scholarships now to go.
I
after
tried to get
esports.
into it. I tried.
Yeah.
I just was awful. I was like, well, it's not happening. I tried to set up a Twitch. It was just not quite working.
It's not fair.
You're on Twitch, right?
I've just signed up for Twitch, and hope to start kind of streaming soon.
Yeah, have
if
you
nothing
kind of
else, I feel like people have a lot of fun watching Alex from Call of Duty die a lot playing Call of Duty. If nothing else, it'll be a comedy broadcast. So we'll see.
What's your Twitch username?
I believe it's just Chad Michael Collins or C Collins 32. I don't know.
So for the Twitch users out there, make sure you
C
hit
Collins
them up.
32. I believe it's C
Well,
Collins 32.
They're expanding their platform to different genres as well, but it's primarily a lot of gaming. Yeah, Twitch.
Oh, that's why I'm not into it.
But I love the idea because I've gamed my whole life. I grew
Really?
up. I'm the Nintendo generation.
Yeah,
man, so I've never not had a controller or a keyboard in front of me. So.
But now it's interactive. And we can
and Twitch seems really cool because I'm doing this anyway.
Yeah.
We might as well make some friends online and just
Play
talk
together.
about it, and have a laugh. Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, we have a little segment called Fit Club 5 where we're going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions and get your, what first comes to mind.
Okay.
So the viewers get to know you a little bit better.
So, first question. Last person you text.
Oh, man. Last person I texted. My producing partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dream dinner guest.
Alive or dead?
Oh, man. That's a really good one. Let's go with Jesus. He's a really cool dude, man. He was in some
I have
awesome
some
stuff.
questions.
What happened, Lord? Last meal.
My last meal. I had a Garden of Life vegan protein bar on the ride over here.
Of
That's a
course.
pound. That's a
Yeah.
pound. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Favorite junk food.
Garden of Life vegan protein brownie
Oh
bar.
my God. Okay. Well, if you were on death row, what would be your last meal?
Chicken parmesan.
Oh, there you go.
All the
Living
eggs, all
wild
the
over
cheese,
there,
all the
Chad.
bread crumbs. Yes.
You were
Yes?
saying that one. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
My old fave back when I was
But that's something
more reckless.
Yeah, that's something you would never have now, right?
Never.
Oh, wow.
Really? You're not like a cheat
You wouldn't want me in this
day.
room if I had that before I came.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
We're
got
not
it.
friends, dairy and eggs. We're not friends anymore.
Okay.
That's
Aw,
awesome.
that's amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much. Those are all the questions we have. Any other questions you have, Shaka?
I love that you had that in the back though. You know, he knows exactly what he wants.
Chicken. So you missed the taste of chicken parmesan?
I used to make them home. I used to make them by the batch. Like I'd go to like a Ralph's,
Yeah.
get that like 12 pack of the
Oh,
chickens,
wow.
and then I would just have like an assembly line with all the chicken parmesan stuff. Throw it in I would just eat it all week
You
long.
haven't had a vegan chicken parm though?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Not even
I
one?
believe so.
You wouldn't even want a vegan
Would you
chicken?
try a vegan chicken parm?
I don't know.
We'll have to work on you. We'll have to work.
Yeah, maybe.
So what was
The
the last
ingredients
time you
list.
had like some type of, cheat meal? Like,
I had vegan apple pie for Thanksgiving, and that's been the first time
oh
in
my
years.
goodness.
Nice.
Wow.
I am
Nice.
so lame. I know.
Wow.
So what do you do for Thanksgiving?
I should look a lot
Yeah.
better than I do.
No, you look great.
amazing.
You look absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. That's what I'm saying. So you're probably like, you have to look flawless. I get it.
That's
but
just discipline. Wow.
so much discipline.
My thing is like I've given up on the 30 seconds of pleasure for like the back end of 4 hours of complete intestinal distress. Like it's just not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I did it for so long, and you just power through because you think that's normal, and you
Right.
realize you have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes the choice is giving up that 30 seconds of fame and having a better day.
Yeah.
And so
That's true.
Wow.
it took a while, but I'm here.
Wise words.
Yeah.
Wise words.
Mhm.
If you had to give advice to someone who wanted to seek this career of action star, what would your advice be?
Look up Sylvester Stallone. Not me. But action stars, that's quite generous. Thank you. I've been really lucky to do a lot of action-oriented stuff, which I have a lot of fun on. But acting in general, if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Toronto, if you're in Vancouver, if you're in Louisiana, if you're these places, it's not LA anymore. It's LA, New York, it's Hawaii. There
Right, I
are
love
hotbeds
Hawaii.
everywhere. So my
Yeah.
number one advice is go to the closest surrounding area that's got stuff going on. Be a star where you are.
Yeah.
Then maybe stay there forever and be successful and have a career that most actors don't get to enjoy.
Right.
But if you do well enough, then consider making the leap. So many people come here hat in hand, and they don't understand there are 1,000 people just like you, and a lot of them have been doing this a lot longer than you. So
Yeah,
the barrier to
absolutely.
entry can be very, very tough.
Right.
But a lot of people think as long as I relocate,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out, and it should be
Right.
fine. And you can. It just might take you 5 years
time.
longer than if you did it over like in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Right.
because you were here 10, 11 years, and building those contacts that eventually led you to get to a place where it was
Absolutely.
possible.
And it is. You're right. It's building, and I have this conversation all the time where, I got this audition for this TV show. I can't wait. I'm going to be like a series regular and the next star and whatever else. I'm like, honestly, your only job is to make a fan of that casting director.
Yeah.
And
Right.
hopefully over the years, that victory in the terms of booking the job comes in. But you have to build. It's such a relationship industry, a relationship
Absolutely.
town.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's
if your
what some
focus
people
is
say.
there, booking the job feels kind of like a bonus
Mm-hmm.
until it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
when you have your level of expectation set after you taste success, sort of thing. So I don't know if that helps.
No.
Otherwise, start dancing, start boxing. If you want to do the stunts and the choreography and everything else, anything you can do to expand your range of skill sets, go get some tactical gun training. Whatever you're into, start doing it now.
Yeah,
You
stay
wanna-
ready.
You want to play
Right.
Viking Warrior? Go train with some longsword stuff, some lightsaber stuff. Go find one of those fun classes
Right.
and start to do that. So,
Yeah.
What's your dream role?
dream role, comic book character, or to play a knight.
Which
Like
comic book
sword and
character?
shield, full armor knight.
Which comic?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm pretty not picky, man. I've been a comic nerd. I've been a comic nerd my whole life. Even villains at this point, I'm like, I don't care. It's still a win for me. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you both. It was a
Been
lot of fun.
amazing. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and you too, Ranella. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
back
I'm
for
so
guest
glad
hosting.
for coming back here, and then I learned a thing or two from him.
Yeah.
He might be the next knight in shining armor. That's what women are looking at.
Hey, where can
There
they,
you go.
Where can they find you online, Ms. Ferrer?
You can find me on Ranella Rocks, RANELLAROCKS. And next weekend, I am actually singing for the Chargers, God Bless America, against
right.
the Vikings.
All
right. Go Chargers.
Okay.
Yes,
Very
so
cool.
stay tuned for that.
Nice.
Fun. That's amazing.
And where can they find you online, Mr. Collins?
Twitter, Instagram is Collins Chad M. Twitch is C Collins 32. I just rediscovered that. And then Facebook is Chad Michael Collins. Come say hi.
Awesome. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.